Well, he's the $170 million man, Alan Joyce, and an independent consultant is now tasked with deciding whether the former Qantas chief executive deserves the $16 million bonus he was given. Alan Joyce, of course, is pushing to keep his long-term bonus of nearly $14 million and his short-term bonus of $2 million. And in total, the Australian reports that he has been paid over $170 million over 15 years as chief executive. Let's bring in tonight's panel the Australian's National Affairs Editor, Joe Kelly, and commentator Jason Morrison. Welcome to you both. Look, Joe, the problems during Alan Joyce's reign as CEO of Qantas are well recorded. An ageing fleet, he outsourced a number of important services, not to mention the $300 million in taxpayer subsidies during COVID, never repaid, flights constantly cancelled. But he says he deserves a bonus, his $16 million bonus. What do you think?
Well, I think most Australians would think the idea of a $16 million windfall payment for Alan Joyce stinks, Sherry. That's what I think. I think it's quite clear that the Qantas board is very concerned about how it will look for its image as well. This is a company going through a transition that's really asking for a fresh start and a new beginning from dispirited Australian travellers. We've got a new chief executive and a new chair coming in, and quite frankly, $16 million is huge. Recently, the airline got hit with a $120 million penalty because it charged people for cancelled flights. Well, Alan Joyce is asking for $16 million. That's more than a tenth of that payment that it's just been hit with. So I think it's a bad look for the airline, and I think you know, if they can get out of it, it would make sense for them to explore those options.
Yeah, and they obviously are keen to, given there's this independent task force trying to find, you know, terms in the clause that could get them out of paying this amount of money, Jason.
What's the board there for? I mean, the board's job is surely to stand up for the best interests of the airline. He did incredible damage to the airline, whether it was intentional, accidental, or just the way the man is. Whatever it was, he's left them with a scar.
Well, it wouldn't be intentional. You
never
would be
know,
trying to do a good job.
You never know. You never know.
Wouldn't be intentional.
It seemed bizarre at the time. You could only wonder what the motives were at some times. But you look at what's going on in Qantas and you say, what the hell is the board doing? You know, I mean, you paid a lot of money, and the chair has paid a lot of money, and all the representatives there are all eminent people in the business community. Why you got to go and find an external report to tell you what's absolutely blaringly obvious here? The answer's no. And have some courage and stand up and say no, rather than wave a report around and say, oh, we got a report and the report said, you know, so we've got to go with the report. This is what's wrong with corporate Australia. The failure to make absolute decisions on things that are straight, plain and simple. And, you know, I mean, I feel sorry for the shareholders. I felt sorry for them whilst Alan Joyce was doing what he was doing. And I feel worse for them now because their board is letting them down at a moment when they actually should stand up and say, mate, you know, you want it, you come sue us.
Yeah, it's not even about the shareholders, though. Isn't it about everyone who tries to catch a flight? And it feels like a third of the time, doesn't matter what airline, Virgin, Qantas, Jetstar, the flights just get cancelled. It's mayhem on so many days at the airports around the country. Now, Peter Dutton came out swinging today over the Chinese officials who body blocked Australian journalist Cheng Lei earlier this week. Dutton said that he raised the incident immediately when he met with the Chinese premier. We heard on the show last night Mike Pizzullo indicate that the Prime Minister was slow to land on the right response. Joe, how do you think the Prime Minister handled this issue this week? These were clear bullying tactics that all Australians could see.
Oh, look, Sherry, my view on this is pretty simple. Australia is a liberal democracy with a free media. That's very important. It's a wonderful thing. not all countries have a free media. It has to be defended, it has to be preserved, it has to be protected at the highest level. Frankly, I think this is terrible that this was allowed to happen in the first place, that an Australian journalist in Parliament House was blocked and intimidated by Chinese officials. It should be beyond question that foreign leaders and their officials, when they come to this country, particularly and especially in the Australian Parliament, respect the freedom of the Australian media. So I just think that as soon as this was realised, Anthony Albanese should publicly have made clear this was unacceptable. It was a breach of what Australia expected, and that should have been conveyed privately to Premier Lee as well.
I mean, Jason, I think the issue here is that Albanese had tried to tell the public that he'd now got the right balance, and yet the Chinese officials were able to so brazenly behave like this in our parliament. I mean, do you think the current government has the right approach?
Yes, the balance is a bit like that, isn't it, really? And it stays like that. We live in fear of upsetting them. We live in fear of standing up to them. We placate them, and it's just evidence that it continues on. I wonder in the briefing notes that were sent there to them as they arrived, say just a reminder, this is an open democracy where people are allowed to ask questions, even insulting questions. Be prepared, it's going to happen. I doubt it's there. There were probably assurances given that it would be the best possible environment for the best possible outcome. I found the whole scene to be quite sickening, and I think the umming and ahhing that's followed since right across politics to be kind of even worse. I mean, we have to actually remember why they're in that house, and they're there to stand up for us. They're not there to play diplomat all the time.
Joe, in the US, a number of Democrats have indicated that they might boycott Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress next month. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she went so far as to say that his invitation should be revoked. Joe, surely the Prime Minister of a democratic nation should be free to address Congress and an ally of the US.
Oh, well, there's no doubt, Sherry, that Benjamin Netanyahu should be free to do that. I don't think that should be questioned at all. I think the key thing about how this will play out politically in the US is what message Benjamin Netanyahu comes with, what he will tell this joint meeting of Congress, and in particular whether there is any update, progress or advancement on the achievement of Israel's political and military objectives in the Middle East. The reason that there is such frustration, significant frustration between the Biden administration and the Netanyahu government is because the Biden administration has lost confidence that Israel can achieve those objectives. So I think the key thing will be whether there's any update there. If there's not, and it's still a continuation of this stalemate, I think that will be tricky for the Biden administration and how it responds to that as it has to meet the demands of conflicting constituencies in America.
It comes down to politics, probably over and above principle, just as it is here. All right, Jason Morris and Joe Kelly, thank you both very much for your time.